Started. Okay. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you. A lot of friendly, familiar faces on here, but also some new faces, particularly from Stand Together world, which is fantastic. For those of you who I've not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Kasey Shriner. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'm the Leadership Development Director for America's Future. I oversee our fellowships and our membership programming. So my department is really focused on making sure that we're equipping young professionals to have the leadership, communications, and advocacy skills and the national network to be able to achieve their goals for liberty. And so we do these monthly webinars once a month to work on those skills, as well as we do quarterly socials. Anthony is a frequent flyer at our trivia events, which is super fun. We have a good time at those because also it's really fun to have friends all over the country and continue to expand your network. Many of you are very well connected where you live, but it's great to have friends everywhere. So I'm a big nerd, as I'm presume that many of you are, if you're here. And LinkedIn is my favorite form of social media. I think it's super interesting. I think it's the most useful in terms of like accurate information. And I also think it's like a little harder, like it's just not as fake. Like I get on Instagram and it's like so obvious to me that you've used 10 filters and I just can't, I can't deal, you know? And so I love LinkedIn. And so we were like, how do we continue to leverage this awesome tool? Because there are some really cool stories and cool ways that you can use it. And Rob's name came up as the LinkedIn expert extraordinaire. So we are really excited to have Rob. I am going to turn it over to Rob to talk to us about why LinkedIn rocks, why it is. Maybe you don't think it's the best form of social media. I'm curious to see what your hot takes are on that. But go ahead and take it away for us, Rob.
Well, thank you so much for that intro, Kasey. I appreciate it. Thank you to America's Future for the opportunity. I'm very humbled and honored to be here. Thank you to all of you for taking time to join us in real time. I hope you're having a good lunch. It looks like most of you are East Coast, or at worst, maybe an hour behind. It's a good time to grab a snack and have a conversation about social media, in particular LinkedIn. I want to say it's fun, though, to be chatting with America's Future because when I first came to Washington, D.C., way back in 2001, it only took me a short time to get on AFF's radar, back then AFF's radar, joined for several years. As I got older, I started to question and wonder, man, maybe I'm no longer the future. Maybe I'm more like America's present. Nevertheless, I've been staying in touch. I've been observing the growth of the organization, the transformation of the organization. It's very exciting, very impressive. And it's really an honor to be here. I'm going to share a slide deck. Here's my plan for the plan of attack. If folks are in agreement, I'll work through slides. It might take me a third of this session. I want to spend most of our time talking, conversing, communicating, ideating together. Because here's the thing, folks. Although I've been working in LinkedIn space aggressively for the past couple of years as part of my job, I still have a lot to learn. So I'm really grateful to be here. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the tips and tricks that you might have. On that note, as the title of this the event is Tips and Tricks for LinkedIn, you know what? Just yesterday, we issued a survey, a pre-event survey, and thanks to so many of you for taking the time to reply to that. I got an interesting vibe from the responses. Not everyone's sold on LinkedIn. Some people are hesitant, skeptical about its utility. That caused me, as the presenter, to kind of rethink how I'm going to approach this session today. I'm going to spend the first bit of time here trying to explain to you how I use this tool, why I think it's worth everyone's time to test, learn, experiment, because I'm not sure everyone in this audience is even sold that it's the right platform for sharing our ideas. So that's kind of the framing I'll give. And then I'll conclude with some tips, tricks, tactics, and that can open up for a very robust Q&A conversation. Let's jump right in. Here's a roadmap of the deck. what we're going to cover today. Who am I? How do I use LinkedIn? What have I learned in the past 2 years of posting aggressively on this platform? What's next on my journey? And then some key takeaways, the tips and tactics that we were talking about, followed by Q&A. Absolutely going to have the bulk of the time for Q&A. I do want to be very clear with you, though, as I think about the opportunity for this community, for this movement, to get our ideas out into the world. My goal from this session, for me personally, is to inspire everyone on this platform to take action, not just to get excited or curious about what's possible, but to actually start getting your hands dirty on this platform, because I think there's a lot of upside for people that just start getting involved. So quickly, who am I? Again, my name is Rob Raffety. There's my LinkedIn profile. Hopefully you've found me or discovered me on that platform. I was able to track down a few of you based on the registration list. But if you haven't met me yet on LinkedIn, please connect. I'm happy to chat further after this session. I'm originally from West Virginia. That's right. Mountain Mama, country roads take me home. I've lived, however, in the DMV area since around January 2001, started out on Capitol Hill, but gravitated quickly toward the world of ideas, starting at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University from 2002 to 2005. Really enjoyed my time there, had an unexpected opportunity to serve as a appointee in the Consumer Product Safety Commission as the counsel to the chair of that regulatory body from 2005 to 2009. Also served a few years in the general counsel's office, but then I was drawn back to Mercatus. I want to mention, though, it's kind of just for a time frame, it's worth mentioning. LinkedIn was created around 2003. I joined it. I looked up on my profile today. I joined LinkedIn in 2008, but I didn't post anything. I just put my, biographical information up there. I want to put that as a point of context and come back to it, because I returned to Mercatus Center 2009 to 2017. Over a period of extraordinary growth for Mercatus, I was doing primarily strategy, planning, reporting, evaluation, the sort of behind-the-scenes sexy work to help organizations thrive and succeed and achieve their goals. And that's the kind of expertise that I cultivated during my time with Mercatus, partnering especially with the thought leaders, the scholars at that organization. I transitioned over to the Stand Together community, first the Charles Koch Institute, then Stand Together Trust. That started around 2017. And again, I was the research director there, coming in and again, applying my skills I had learned at Mercatus for the benefit of the Stand Together community. But here's an interesting thing, the kind of big pivot and why we're here today. It is during the time of COVID, specifically the year 2021. So we're a year into this thing. We're all working from home. We're all remote. We're all challenged. We're all struggling to stay connected. And, the Stand Together community is a remarkable place. We apply a management philosophy called principle-based management. I'm certain that some of you are familiar with it. If not, please check it out, Google it. Happy again to chat with you more about that offline. The basic premise is every employee has something to offer, and good ideas can come from anyone. And this was a great example of this principled entrepreneurship during one of our all-staff meetings, 800-900 people on a Zoom call. We're all working remote in the depths of COVID. And I just thought, maybe we could do better with our internal communications. Maybe we could have a more effective way to keep staff connected to the priorities. And I certainly was struggling at that time. So I wrote up a memo, sent it to leadership. The next day, they got back to me. They said, Rob, we think you're right. You want to help out with this? So over the ensuing months, I was able to contribute to some of the opportunities and demonstrate that I had capacity for it. It was a significant career transformation for me personally, but in transforming myself, I was able to transform the business and really, kick off the first freestanding internal comms capability for the Stand Together community. And that was extraordinary. But that was only a few years ago, folks. And only a year into that job did I really start using LinkedIn as a tool to do my job. Here's the first post that I made as Director of Internal Communications back in January 2022. I was kind of like announcing to the world that I'm going to start documenting my journey. I'm going to start posting a lot on this platform to bring people along for the ride as I was creating this new freestanding capability at Stand Together. But what I really want to emphasize on this is January 2022 isn't all that long ago. I'm still pretty new at this. I very, 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 very kindly respect the way I was presented here as a LinkedIn guru or expert, but I hesitate to even use those terms. Frankly, I have a lot to learn. And when I issued that pre-event survey yesterday, it was interesting to see the diversity of experiences that you as the audience have had with this platform. Out of a scale of 1 to 7, I put myself somewhere between a 2 and a 3. So some of you may have a lot more knowledge of this platform than even I do. And that's why I'm so excited to be here to learn from you as well. So how do I use LinkedIn? To understand that, we all need to back up a second and understand what is Stand Together, because I use this as a tool in my role for Stand Together. It's very explicit, and that's essential for you to understand how I'm using LinkedIn, is to understand what is the Stand Together community where I work. It's a community of independently operated organizations, about a dozen in total, but we have a shared vision. Regardless of where any employee works across the Stand Together community, they are working to advance a society that's grounded in the principles of human progress, equal rights, openness, mutual benefit, dignity, self-actualization. We are trying to get the key institutions of society, that's education, business, communities, government, aligned with these principles so that more and more people can achieve their potential and thrive through contribution. That is what unites the work of every organization, every employee all across this community. It's about 1,300 employees all in across this community. It's a very exciting, dynamic place. So what is internal communications and Stand Together? Well, we know we have ambitions, right? We want to shift paradigms. We want to change the way that people think about diagnosing and solving problems in this country, away from top-down and control approaches and more toward bottom-up empowerment approaches across these key institutions of society. In order to have any chance at succeeding at that, any chance, we've got to get all the employees who work in this community deeply connected to the vision, the principles, the strategies, the priorities that are informing our work. So internal comms is the capability that is really a part of several capabilities, including the principle-based management team, the HR team, supervisors, and others. But we are helping lead the charge to empower the staff. We want to give people knowledge, tools, information, resources, what they need to contribute to their fullest, to identify the best opportunities, to apply like principled entrepreneurship in their roles, to create value in new and exciting ways never before thought possible, to lean into that culture of collaboration for shared success, right? That is what internal comms is all about. In order to do that, we have created, and these were the first things that come online, and you'll be familiar, like any organization that does internal comms at any level will have some number of these types of tactics, right? That would include kind of three categories. Asynchronous, that's a fancy way of saying email, like all staff emails. We've all got them, we've all get them. We know how that works. It's a familiar tool to communicate with employees. All staff events, like all staff meetings, town halls, AMA sessions, things of that nature. They can be online, they could be hybrid, they could be all in person. But internal comms is, routinely offering those types of opportunities to connect staff. And then intranet, right? So that's like a shared access platform. Any employee has access to it, can have any questions they need answered so they can do their jobs with excellence. Those are the traditional categories of content. We have lots of products within them, and that is up and running, and we're crushing. We're doing a great job, and the team has got miles to go, but we have seen step change improvement since 2021 when I first started. Then the question is back to, how do I use LinkedIn, Raffety? That's what we're here to talk about. Well, listen, I use LinkedIn very intentionally, and this is where I want to really emphasize a takeaway for all of you. It's not just posting for the sake of posting, trying to get followers, fans, likes, engagement. That's all part of it, but to what end? To what end? That's the question we all should be asking. For me, very specifically, my LinkedIn posts are intentionally designed to complement the primary tactics I just articulated. They are meant to come alongside and reinforce the messaging priorities that internal comms is disseminating through those other product lines, those other channels, all right? That is why I post on LinkedIn. That is my singular focus and mission, to reach my colleagues on a platform where a good chunk of them exist and are active at a regular basis. Now, something else that is cool about LinkedIn and how I use it, which is distinct and I think super exciting compared to these other capabilities, which are essential, is that LinkedIn creates something that these other platforms don't do as well, and that is it creates a window of opportunity for engagement. So if you think about it, whenever you get an all-staff email at work, that's typically giving you information that you can use in your job. Maybe you'll help create value in your role at a better way. You're all on the same page, right? But you're very rarely going to reply to an all-staff email. Often they even come from, or they come from entities or teams, not even individuals. So it's a bit of a barrier. That's fine. It's normal, right? LinkedIn is a social media platform, which by design encourages and invites staff engagement. So my posts will solicit comments, engagement, direct messages. People can learn, and I can share information that's coming out in those other products with colleagues on LinkedIn in a way that invites engagement, that invites them to contribute and ask questions, and it lowers those barriers because LinkedIn engagement's coming from a friendly face, Rob Raffety, not from some sort of unknown entity, right? So that's how I use LinkedIn. We'll talk more about what I'm achieving there, what I've learned over the past 2 years, 2+ years of posting aggressively. And I can't emphasize this enough. I did, I just started posting about 2 years ago pretty routinely. Before that, I hadn't done much social media on LinkedIn whatsoever. But my key takeaway is LinkedIn works. And listen, that's a nice thing to say. What do you mean, Raffy? I know you guys are a skeptical audience. You are science-based, fact-based, evidence-based. So what are you talking about here? What's the evidence? First, I'm going to point to colloquial evidence. Not the most valuable because it is a little difficult to quantify, but I have lots of informal feedback from colleagues. Of course, on the platform, I'm routinely getting comments. We love your LinkedIn posts. Help me feel connected. Keep at it. Keep doing it. So I get a lot of cheering and encouragement from my colleagues, my key customers, my audience. They like it. They want more of it. But I also get that in the hallways too, right? So it's a lot of stuff that I can't measure or document as well as I should to prove it to you. But I promise you, I get a lot of that informal type of feedback. Here's something else I get, which is not a target audience, but pretty interesting. Every once in a while, and I promise you, it's happened more than once. It's actually happened a handful of occasions where I'm walking around the hall at the office and someone comes up to me and say, "Hey, I just started working here a few weeks ago. You're Rob Rafferty. I recognize you." Yeah, what's the story? Well, I just started here, but during my recruitment process, I looked up to understand more about Stand Together. And guess what? You're all over the LinkedIn network when I searched for Stand Together. And I just liked the way you were describing the work of the community. You were showcasing the team, the culture, the individuals who are contributing, some of the work of the partners. That inspired me to join this company. So that's a pretty cool takeaway as well. How many people, came to like consider their roles as a more promising opportunity by virtue of seeing some of my posts? I can't pinpoint it exactly, but I know it's happening. And then finally, partners who again aren't my priority audience. The organizations with whom we work are on that platform. Beyond my customers, my colleagues, I'm reaching thousands of other individuals in public who see something I post for my colleagues, and then it causes them to reach out to me, a DM, an email. "Hey, I saw something you posted there. I want to learn more about it." I can connect the dots, introduce them to a colleague, and then they're off to the races. That's value that's not happening absent this activity. So that's some evidence, right? But you're going to say, "Well, I need more than that, Raffy. Let's go further. Audience reach." Again, I'm not trying to grow my audience beyond my customers. My intention here is really to focus on the employees of the Stand Together community. But I have about 4,400 followers now. About 800 to 900 of those are the employees of the community. So I'm reaching probably about 70 to 80% of the entire community through this platform. It's not a silver bullet. Again, it's complementary to other tactics. There's no silver bullets in internal comms. Everyone consumes information differently. But my reach is, significant. I'm not trying to grow it beyond my audience, but it seems to be attracting other followers, which is kind of interesting. Here's something that's very important, though, to understand. Of those 4,400 followers, if you look at my top demographics for the companies where people are employed, Stand Together is far and away the number one. Nearly 12% of that 4,400 are employed at Stand Together. About 4.5% are employed at AFP, which is an organization, the Stand Together community. Stand Together Foundation, 1.2%. These other two you see in the five, Mercatus and Institute for Humane Studies, are close partners of the Stand Together community. So although they're not employees of Stand Together, it's helpful for them that they're consuming. The bottom line, the key takeaway here is I'm able to reach my target audience on this platform. I have evidence of that, right? Finally, content performance for the data nerds in here. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible. I can't tell you what exactly I know, but I'm giving you behind the scenes. We're just sharing with you 365 days of impressions. I just ran this search today. Close to 270,000 impression. Now, an impression is, what does that mean? It's you're coming up in someone's news feed. How valuable is that? It's very hard to demonstrate, but it's an interesting thing. And it's started to broker conversations with our marketing team because, I'm not the only one at Stand Together that has a LinkedIn page. We have brand channels. We have thought leaders. We have some of our executives that are doing positioning on the platform. How do my numbers relate to theirs? I'm starting to learn and scratch the surface on that. And maybe I can complement their efforts more than impressions, because that just really is a big number metric of, are you coming up in people's news feeds? A more important metric to me is engagement. And here's where it's kind of cool to see over 5,300 engagements in the past year. That can be anything from a like to a comment to a repost. All that suggests that you're reaching someone and motivating to do something. Even if it's as minimal as a thumbs up, it's still a little bit of something. It's a gesture. It's a deepening of a relationship. Now, and the next step for me would be understanding Are those people that making those engagements, are they colleagues of mine? Are they actually my target audience, or am I still reaching people beyond that? So we have to scrutinize this data. We have to get deeper on it. And that's really where I'm going to go before we turn to Q&A. What's next on my LinkedIn journey? I have to get more intentional. I've been doing this for 2 years, but I'm going to chart a clearer course. I'm going to have a partner in crime on this. I think a friend or a colleague is going to contribute to help me map out. So it's much more intentional and much less seat of the pants, right? And if we think about this as a from to statement, which is what we tend to do in our community, I want to take my efforts on LinkedIn from kind of opportunistic posting that's broadly informative and interesting and engaging towards strategic, actionable posts that tier to the community-wide priorities. And I can imagine what this looks like in the near future. Every start of the week, I could sit down with a partner and say, what are the key inflection points? What's happening across Stand Together that we can really push out there? How can I come behind and repost other content strategically on the highest priorities, frame it and contextualize it so it's deepening the connection to our vision and principles? I think there's a lot more work to be done on this. And so my pledge, which is a bit of a risk, but I want to take it because I like it. I enjoy this work, and I have now kind of a charge from my supervisor. Rob, you got to do this more and you want to do it better. So I'm just putting this out there for the world. 6 months from now, Q2 2025, so we're talking like March, April timeframe, I'm going to have a much clearer understanding of my LinkedIn efforts. So I have metrics, analytics that will enable me to, really articulate a cost per impression, cost per engagement, and a real understanding and measure of the organic outreach, the DMs that are coming to me because of my posts. I think with that information, we can really start to learn a lot more about the impact. So now we're getting to the part where I think a lot of folks are curious, key takeaways. What have I learned and how does this relate to tactics before we jump into Q&A? So listen, these are pretty broad strokes, but I think it's really worth mentioning. Have a plan and commit. By have a plan, I mean, understand your audience. A lot of people get upset or frustrated because they post on LinkedIn, they don't get any traction. But if you ask them, well, who are you trying to communicate with? They don't really have a clear articulation of that. For me, it's simple. I'm trying to reach the employees of the Stand Together community who have who have LinkedIn pages and who are active on that platform. And that's my target demo. And that's my measure of success. Anything else is ancillary. It's nice, but ultimately my goal is to reach and engage my colleagues. So I would implore you, have a plan, understand who is your audience, really get sharp on that, define it very, clearly, and then you can go about the means of reaching them. And then by commit, I mean, you got to give it time. It's not going to happen overnight. I think a lot of people give up too soon. They post for a couple days or a couple weeks, and maybe sometimes they don't even get any engagement whatsoever. And it gets sad and frustrating, easily depressed. I'm telling you, you got to keep going. And by the way, if you're not seeing traction on the platform, I hate to tell you this, but that's not a reflection of the platform because the platform works. It's a reflection of you needing to really be humble and think about the different strategies and styles of content you're posting on there because the platform has been proven to work. You just have to become a better practitioner of the craft of posting. Second key takeaway here, create value and get social. This is so important. And again, if I relate it to my specific role, I'm trying very intentionally for every post to create value for my end user, my partner, my colleagues, and Stand Together. I'm not just posting superfluous information. I'm posting information that's going to deepen their connection to our culture, our vision, our priorities, to let them see what's happening across this extraordinary community and get them thinking differently about how they can create value and collaborate, innovate, and find ways to do better together, right? So what does value look like for you when you're posting? That's an interesting question. And it should be something that involves not merely posting selfishly. Hey, I just wrote an op-ed. I'm going to put it on LinkedIn. Everyone in the world should read it because I posted it here. Why? Why on earth? How does it create value for them? Who are you trying to reach? This gets back to knowing your audience. And in terms of knowing your audience, you have a chance to build your audience over time by not only posting as a one-way comms tool on LinkedIn, but by getting social on the platform, engaging others. Put the social in social media, man. That's what we're here to do. And if you comment and like and engage and reach out to people that have similar interests and follow and them and comment on the comments of some of the people that you're following, that's how you slowly over time will build interest in your work. All right. It's not just a selfish platform to be a megaphone to the world. That's a function it can serve. But really, you want to think about what value am I specifically giving the audience and how can I get social and with others? The third little takeaway, and this is not my own, this is from one of my heroes in social media, the one and only remarkable, accomplished entrepreneur and guru on all these, and someone I look to for guidance routinely, Gary Vaynerchuk, aka Gary V. Some of you may know him. If not, I'd be happy to chat more offline. But it's this notion of document, don't create, or more like document versus create. There are different forms or different styles of how you go about producing content on these platforms. So for a lot of people, it's intimidating. The idea that I have to write a post, I have to take a picture. It just seems like extra work. I don't know how to do it. And I think that's the wrong mindset. If you kind of shift your perspective on this and you think about what can I do that's happening in my day-to-day work and activity, I can bring along an audience for the ride. That's what I did basically the past 2 years. The things you're seeing that I post about on LinkedIn are by and large me walking the hallways, seeing things as it happen in real time, taking a selfie picture, contextualizing this story around our principles, priorities, our vision, and then sharing it on that platform. And I do that routinely in a lot of different ways as much as possible. And it doesn't involve me having to really think a lot in advance. It happens organically. And that's about documenting my process rather than like trying to create original new things, so it's a little bit lower cost. It's a mindset to adopt, I would suggest. Finally, test and learn, test and learn, test and learn. Here's where I have a great shortcoming. I don't know all the time what I'm expecting to achieve with any particular post. I need to get sharper on that because I'll tell you what, over years, even months, you get to start a body of work that has data behind it. You can see who's engaging, why they're engaging, which types and styles of content are getting more reactions or comments or likes or shares. And that can inform your future work. I've got to level up my game on that immensely to improve and achieve my full potential on this platform. But the sooner you start thinking about every post as a test, and you're trying to like learn something rather than just putting it out in the world and having someone consume it, you're going to learn something in return. That I think is an important mental model as well. Finally, key takeaway. I want people to take action on this platform. There's so much thought that goes into strategy, planning. Oh, I got to mull it over. I got to think carefully about what I'm going to post. And yes, there's value in that. You want to have some intention behind it. But I think you're going to learn the most by getting your hands dirty, just jumping on the platform and get going. The risks are probably pretty low. If you have any common sense and good judgment, you're not going to make actions that you regret or that get you in any particular trouble. So I would just say, get going, take action. Don't just sit back and think about what's possible. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you're going to learn and improve. Now we're going to jump into Q&A. Thank you so much for that quick run up. I want to be respectful of the people that actually ask questions on the survey in advance. There are 3 questions I want to nail. These are the ones that came in from my email that was sent out yesterday. How can a public, and during Q&A, I'll give you my thoughts, and then this we can open up on Q&A to other people if they have suggestions or thoughts. How can a public policy think tank grow and I see a lot of comments in the chat. I'll be checking in that in just a second, I promise. Thank you so much. And I'm focused on this deck right now, but I'll definitely get into the chat box. How can a public policy think tank grow engagement on LinkedIn? Well, here's something interesting I encountered today. People trust humans, not brands. This was a post from an influencer on LinkedIn just earlier this morning. I thought it was a really cool illustration, and it might inform someone's approach here on this in this session. Humans trust humans, not logos. Here's the example that this gentleman shared. Microsoft, which has like almost 23 million followers, might post about some new software launch. They're going to get little engagement. It looks like an advertisement, right? People don't want to engage that. They might even just gloss over it. Meanwhile, the chairman and CEO of Microsoft puts a post out. He's getting 16, 17,000 engagements. So what does this suggest? It suggests if you work in an organization, it's not just about the brand of the enterprise. It should be about the people who work there, the thought leaders, the executives, or anybody, frankly, I think could contribute in a way that makes the message a little less of a sales pitch and more soft and receivable and more likely to generate engagement. And by the way, when someone asks me questions like this, I'm like, are you using ChatGPT? Are folks involved with AI revolution? This stuff is remarkable. On LinkedIn, because I could sit here and tell you some things I have ideas about, but check this out. It gave me 13 ideas, right? And now these may be good or bad ideas, but they all seem directionally correct. A few stand out to me. Polls and surveys, those are inherently engaging on their face. The question or the key, I think, suggestion about surveys is, hey, if you issue a survey, you better use the results. So if I'd issued that survey yesterday that was sent out, Kasey sent out so graciously, and I didn't even reference it or incorporate that information, that's going to burn my credibility with you guys. So of course I had to use that information.
Hey, Rob, your audio is going a little bit in and out.
Box for Q&A. I just want to highlight that there's a couple specific suggestions here from ChatGPT that I found particularly helpful. Engage in trending discussions. What's happening? How can you tap into the zeitgeist? Collaborate with others. That's going to grow your reach. Encourage your employees to get involved in sharing and commenting. That's a useful tactic, I think, as well. Some more outside the box ideas. These are Rob Raffety suggestions, so take it or leave it. But you can hack culture, sports, arts, entertainment. If there's things in the news that's happening where you can hook your content, your posts, that can be an effective means of having greater reach and engagement. How about comedy and absurdism? People like lighthearted posts. It doesn't have to be your singular brand, but I think think tanks are often so buttoned up and straight-laced, they don't think enough about just every once a week, maybe posting something a little lighthearted and funny. On this, I'd turn your attention to Consumer Product Safety Commission's Twitter handle. It's really solid, absurd and weird, but has a lot of impact and reach. Or even if you're into the private sector, looking at Nutter Butter and their work, they're getting a ton of traction right now on social media because they're just doing some zany stuff. Sometimes zany works. Zany can get attention. Finally, I'd say mascots. That seems like an underexplored opportunity for grabbing attention and engagement. Think about the Geico gecko. How much insurance has that little creature sold over the generations? Or the caveman back when I was growing up. That was a pretty fun character that they created. I'm always surprised why think tanks aren't into that game a little bit more. I understand there are, of course, brand reputation and things on the line, but I think increasingly, certainly as Gen Z ages into adulthood, those sorts of tactics could be transformative. So how about this group? Anyone else have suggestions how a public policy think tank can grow engagement on LinkedIn? I'd love to hear thoughts, comments, suggestions on this one from the audience. If not, I can move on to the next question, by the way.
I have thoughts, and just I agree with you 100% on putting the people in face of the brand. Like we talked a lot about this at America's Future, being a young professionals organization, that you have done this. I'm exploring it, and I would say our director of marketing, Chloe Anagnos, is pretty good at this. Like, you want people to feel like you know me, and then therefore you can know the brand. And so I think for each of you, I would challenge you to continue building up these LinkedIn profiles, your Instagram, your Twitter, whatever it is that makes the most sense. I also think American Conservation Coalition does a good job at this. So shout out to Philip, that building your own personal brand on these platforms, I think, goes so far, because it's much more glamorous to follow Kasey than maybe like Georgia Public Policy. No shade to Georgia Public Policy, but
it's just a matter of humanizing something, right? We trust humans more than people, more than logos, so to speak. The next question that was submitted in advance: what do you see LinkedIn accomplishing in the coming years? Will this platform remain relevant moving forward? Do you foresee any major changes in how people use the app? I'm not Nostradamus, but I, in a sense, have a concern for that. I know it has evolved a lot over even the time that I've used it. If you think when I first started, I logged in and I created my LinkedIn account in 2008. Back then, it was really just a place where you could kind of maintain a sort of online profile, a very professional identity, where you went to school, where you were working. And in a way, it was like a resume on a platform. I never used it. I didn't promote it. But if people wanted to learn about me, they could go there. I think people it became more normalized to use it in your signature line on emails. You could, hey, check my LinkedIn profile. I'm not sure when posting really became a feature on that platform, but I certainly didn't engage it until the past couple of years. It existed before that. The platform is certainly transforming in a way that I think is interesting. People are using it to cultivate an identity as a thought leader. And I think this becomes easier with AI tools. Whether or not they actually are a subject matter expert is a secondary question. It's can they get information from a tool like ChatGPT and aggregate it and present it in a compelling way, a listicle, some images that catch your attention, and tips, tricks, tactics. They might become experts at marketing themselves as an expert rather than becoming an expert in the underlying subject matter. So you have to be, I think, somewhat judicious about who you follow and what advice you take on that platform. It is evolving. It is changing. I know there was someone who was who answered in their survey, they got 2 jobs via LinkedIn. So I still think it's a very useful tool for recruitment and job seekers. I've never personally had use for it that way, but my understanding is it works. And certainly one of you out there said that in the survey. So here's the other thing to remember, folks, and this is always this audience, I shouldn't need to say it. Creative destruction is a thing. Innovation, transformation is a thing. Competition is a thing. I just saw in the news the other day, Kmart's, I think, closing its last store in the near future. When I was growing up, Kmart dominated. And when we were growing up, Facebook was cool. Now the kids don't want to be on it. These platforms are going to evolve over time and ebb and flow, and some aren't going to make it. I mean, where's MySpace today, right? So I think this is an interesting thing for all of us to get a mindset around. LinkedIn may not be here permanently or forever. It seems to have a pretty good grip on the professional social media platform at the time being. But if something else comes along and creates greater value for customers, it will get knocked off. So be prepared for that and don't get upset by it. Some people go, oh man, I built up all this following and I do all my work, and now if LinkedIn declines and something else comes along, I feel like I've wasted my time. No, you've got to adjust, you got to adapt, and you got to jump into the next space and not complain, because that's the market process that we all know and love, and that's the reality of the world we're in. So any thoughts on this? What do people see LinkedIn accomplishing in the coming years, or maybe they see changes in the way they're using it? Be happy to field some comments on that. If not, no problem. I can move on to the next question, which is a longer one, but a kind of a cool one, which was, if you want to make a connection with someone on LinkedIn, but you haven't met them in person, you know about them, you admire them, you maybe are a fan of their work. How do you engage someone on the platform in a way that doesn't come across like a cold call or, too selfish in intention? So the person says, I want to be personable and not like I'm just throwing out feelers to see what sticks. Listen, this is super important. Great question. Because no doubt LinkedIn is an extraordinary platform for meeting people, for reaching out to strangers, people that you might, admire their work as a scholar, as an activist, as a communicator. And here's the funny thing about it. I have a sneaking suspicion that many, but not all, people on this platform are excited when people reach out to them. Now, granted, if you're someone with millions of followers and you're more kind of in this sort of social media celebrity category, it's going to be hard to break through that. But I'm talking about the influencers in the DC area who might have tens of thousands of followers or even hundreds of thousands of followers. I bet they're more accessible than you think. My strategy on this would be to not just come in hot. I've had people reach out to me and connect with me, and I have pretty low standards for accepting invitations to connect. And I hate it when someone wants to connect with me. They're a stranger. Hey, it sounds interesting. Go ahead. Let's connect. 2 seconds later, I get this robot automated message. Hey, I saw you're into internal comms. Would you like to buy my software? Yeah, it's just the turnoff. I'm not in the platform for that. But I love it when people comment on my work. I love it when people DM me without even an ask, but just a generous reflection. Hey, I like what you posted today. That was pretty helpful to me. That was interesting, Rob. And that's it. They're kind of setting a foundation to follow up later down the road if they ever want to make an ask or reach out to me. And for me personally, I'm always eager and happy to grab a cup of coffee virtually or in person with just about anyone in the world. I lean into that part of my personality. I'm a people person, right? I enjoy it. And not everyone does. So just assume you're not going to get 100% success rate on this. But I think take it slow. Don't come in too hot. That's my advice. But be generous with your appreciation. That's something we could all do a lot better on. If someone does something out there in the world, if they're an influencer and they're doing content that really excites you, or a particular piece that they wrote hits and motivates you, let them know that. That's nothing wrong with that. And that's part of the value of the platform. It enables you to do it at very low cost. That's it for the key. Oh, go ahead.
I want to jump in and add 2 things here. One, I think particularly for content creators and writers, it is a very lonely job and it's a lonely experience. It's you and this piece of paper, right? And so I think those folks actually really like dialoguing about their work a lot more than they may seem a little untouchable in some sense or removed, but I think I have found running our Writing Fellows programs, people are psyched to talk about what they're writing about and what they're working on in largely isolation. My second, this is my cool, hot LinkedIn tip that I have. Now, I don't pretend to be anywhere near as proficient as Rob, but there's actually a really cool feature where you can reverse search through your university. So if you attended college, it pulls. So I went to Butler University, go Dogs, here in Indianapolis. It will pull everyone in it'll pull everybody into that database, and you can sort them by what they majored in, what year they graduated, where do they live, what city. So when I actually used to work at Butler and Career Services, like if we were going to New York City, we would just cold call, reach out to people. And so I think like if you're doing more general networking, like maybe you're looking to move, maybe you have moved, maybe you're looking to do a career change, starting in that university alumni network and using LinkedIn as a tool to do so is great, because you already have that like bond with somebody of, oh, we went to the same school and remember how gross the cafeteria food is, all that kind of stuff.
100%. These platforms are great for finding your tribe. You can search and find people not just of university alumni affiliations. That's a natural one, but you can even just like use hashtags to search and discover people who have similar interests. There are groups on LinkedIn where you can join. For instance, I joined a LinkedIn group on internal communications. I'm not super active on it, but I visit it and I see what people are posting there because it helps give me some ideas for where I can go with my content. I'm going to take my screen down here because that was the last question submitted, but someone had Charity's got her hand up. Let's bring Charity to the stage, Kasey.
Hey Rob, how are you? Thanks for hosting this. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat
Hey,
with us.
thanks for being here.
So I guess my question is just maybe this is more elementary and more than this talk has the capability to answer, but really I'm looking to build an audience, but I don't know exactly what that audience looks like yet. It's a very like obscure sort of idea that I have in my head. And I guess for me, my big thing is I'm really passionate about free market solutions to things, but particularly free market solutions to climate change. And so, I have a Substack and I've got all these op-eds that I'm writing, and I'm, now in the AF Writing Fellowship. I'm trying to kind of get all this together, but I don't really know what that looks like. And so I guess with that, I get people all the time that add me on LinkedIn, and I've always been coached from like the Leadership Institute and various other places to not add people that I don't know. But that being said, I'm trying to build something bigger than my current network. So I guess like how do you sort of use LinkedIn to do that? Or is this not quite for building it? It's like once you have an established a network.
That's a fascinating perspective. And I don't want to contradict any of the advice you're getting or cause you distress that you may not be doing things right. I could be wrong. I want to be very open about that. I have a certain approach to this. Mine is my default is typically to be a little bit more open and trusting of people that want to connect with me until they give reason to not deserve it. But it's never happened. I've never in my experience had someone come in and, start flaming me or criticizing my posts or anything like that. If I was to have that experience, I might reach out to the person and say, hey, what's up? Why you, doing that? And if they didn't respond favorably, you can always unfriend them or remove them as a follower. But I've never had to do that, and my practice has always been pretty open and fluid. But I understand, that there are different approaches to this. In terms of building your audience, it sounds like you got some interesting work. And to me, what's cool is you're a writer. You're going to have content. You're going to have a core product that can be spun off in a lot of different and compelling and interesting ways. And frankly, it's no good to me. This is just a perspective. It's wonderful if you write an op-ed and you get it published in a major newspaper. That's exciting, but it doesn't matter if anybody doesn't read it. So aside from getting it published, we've got to do a better job marketing, repackaging, repurposing the ideas of any written product into tweet threads, into a LinkedIn post with a survey that has engaging opportunities for people to criticize or point out the shortcomings, perhaps. I think people should be more humble, more vulnerable with their content, and use these platforms as a way of civil discourse. I know that sounds odd for social media because there's not a place where a lot of that unfolds, but I think there's potential there. And if you seek it out and get the right types of people, I think you can find it. So I think one thing I would suggest, again, I'm a little long-winded here, but I want to give you something actionable. For the specific issues that you're interested in, try to identify some of the leading influencers or people that you admire who are writing in that space. Make sure you're following them, you're commenting, you're engaged, and you see who the people are that are commenting or engaged with those thought leaders. They might be people that you'd naturally want to be inclined to reach out to spark conversations. And lastly, I'll just say, give it time. Nothing will happen overnight. It takes years and years of hard work, grunt work. But if you assume that from the start, that it's not going to be one post that suddenly turns you into a world famous thought leader overnight, then you're going to be okay. Just have your mindset for a long-term, not short-term success. Does that make sense? I hope so. It's a couple other people got their hands up. We have about 15 minutes left. Let's get as much as we can out of this. I guess Trina's coming up next on my page. Kasey, is that great?
Yeah.
Yep,
Hey,
go
how's it
ahead.
going?
Hi, Trina.
Hi, Casey. Hello, everyone. I apologize for the background noise. I am at a work event right now, so I'm trying to multitask, but I really had just like a really quick question. For the longest time, I've been trying to, and I guess it's a two-part question. One is more like an aesthetic thing for my LinkedIn page. I've been trying to figure out how to do it where it shows the organization and then the different roles within the organization. You know how people have, okay, United States Air Force, and then they say, okay, I did this job. I had this job doing this date, and then this job doing that date. How do you go in and physically change it so it shows the timeline under one organization of different roles that you worked within a certain organization? And how
good.
Oh, and then I think the second part question was, how far back do you go? Like, if it shows a certain expertise, do you want to just do the last 10 years of your career? And then, yeah, that's it.
Sure. So thanks so much for these questions. You guys are great. And I'll give you my best answers again, with the caveat that I'm learning along with you. My sense is your first question is a very kind of basic question about format, layout, design, aesthetics, branding on your specific LinkedIn page. And that's a great question to ask, because if someone is clicking on there, you want to make sure that your visual message you're communicating is reflective of who you are and what you have to offer and what you're about. So I can only give you an example that is my own, which is something I cultivated very intentionally. Although it wasn't there for the first year or so, I just had a generic picture in the background of my banner. But there are ways to put banner ads together that are reflective of who you are as a person. If I can take a second, maybe I can share my LinkedIn page with folks just to show you what it looks like. So let me just hop in here 2 seconds. Let me see if I can share my screen. It's a small example of how I think about this stuff. It's one way to think about it. It may not be the right way. Here's my LinkedIn homepage. You've probably all seen that at some point. But if you look at my banner in particular, it has my headshot, which is a classic. I guess it's just one that's pretty old. Actually, I should probably update my headshot. It's a couple years ago. I'm a little slimmer back then. But historically, I had something generic up here in the background, some pictures of mountains, maybe because I was from West Virginia. But about a year and a half ago or so, I thought I need to do something that more reflects and embodies me as an internal comms guy for Stand Together community. So what did I do? I actually put a call out on my LinkedIn page. I said, hey, folks, I need to get a new banner. And I'm thinking maybe I could aggregate some of the selfie pictures that I've posted on this LinkedIn page, put them together. But you know what? I'm not technically very good at this. So, does anyone know how to size and adjust images? Lo and behold, the community came out, someone replied, and led me to getting a colleague help me put this banner together, which has to be a certain size. And this is where I'm not going to be helpful to you, but there's plenty of easy information. If you Google it, you can find, like, how do I size a proper LinkedIn banner? For me, this is a kind of a collage of images. And if I'm supposed to be a guy who's, propelling our culture of collaboration for shared success, I wanted to have a picture that depicts me in conversations with different colleagues across the community, different situations. So that's how I thought about it. I think it's a nice visual to kind of depict the type of role that I play for Stand Together. In terms of the type of history of information that you put on the platform, that's up to you entirely. I'm 48 years old, and I've put everything on there. I've listed my entire educational experience, starting from undergrad to grad school. I've listed all my work experiences. I think I started with the very first thing I did out of college, out of law school, working on Capitol Hill. So I have a particular suggestion, which is go back as far as you want. Maybe even if you have a fun life experience as a kid growing up, you could put something out there. Like I worked in a movie theater, I don't know. Those things are kind of fun. And sometimes you'd be surprised. Those could lead to interesting conversations. Someone goes to your page and says, oh my gosh, you worked at McDonald's as a teenager? Me too. And that could be an interesting point of entry that's totally separate from anything else. So I think there are some best practices and branding tips. I would encourage you to just Google, how to create a compelling um, cover page on LinkedIn, something along those lines. You're going to find a lot of tips and tricks. It's very easily accessible, and you can, I think, take those in along with what I said, and hopefully that helps you get on your way a little bit.
Thanks, Rob. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And then as far as the timeline, how do you get multiple job roles under the same company to show on that timeline? Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, let me check again. I'll share my screen to see how I did it, because I do have a resume that is one where I have different jobs. Oh, so like this right here. So I worked at the Mercatus Center for this particular stint, 8 years or so, and I had different roles. Is this kind of what you're talking about? Do you
Right,
see my screen?
exactly. For some reason on my LinkedIn, it only lets me do one role, and I can't do that. You see how you have bullet points under that same organization?
Yeah, now that's an interesting, how did I do that? I
Do
did
you
it
have
so
to be
long
a
ago.
premium, or because I
That's
don't
an
have a premium account?
interesting question. I don't think so. I think I've done that and had that like that for a while, but maybe I'll follow up with you on this because we can learn together. I'm certain that there's an answer out there, and it is useful to learn it, because if you had different roles that show you're exceeding your increasing responsibility, that can be
Yes.
attractive. That can be an attractive thing for a prospective employer. You want people to see you've been growing in your role, even if you stayed in an organization for a long period of time. That makes a lot of sense. So let's find a way to do that. Even if you can't do it without the premium, there might be some other trick there. So I'll follow up with you on this. I think it's a good idea. So thanks for raising it.
I
Thank
just
you.
found a help article on LinkedIn for it too, so I'll post that in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Kasey, it looks like she's concurs. We put everything on LinkedIn. Resumes are limiting documents. You can put more stuff on here. Another thing I'll mention real quickly is you can also like pick people that you like. You can like include in your homepage. Here are some of the people that influence me or that I enjoy. That sends a signal to the world about you. So keep that in mind, right? Anytime you're following certain influencers or musicians, it could be anything, right? That is going to be a signal to the world that someone's going to look at it and go, oh, because they like this particular author or thought leader, they may be more or less inclined to want to follow you or get in touch with you. Something else to think about. A couple more questions. I'll get as many as we can, and I'm happy to stay even a little over if we'd like. I understand we're going to be cutting off here in the next 5 minutes or so. Anthony, I believe, was up next, and then Danielle.
Hey, Rob. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this. It's been very, very informative. And Kasey, thanks for putting this all together. So my question, I put this in the chat too. Like, how would you know? Hold on, let me just want to make sure I asked two questions. Make sure it's in front of me. Yeah. So I want to ask, what is like the ratio between sharing others on people's content versus your own? I know the typical rule is that like you would want to share like your own content over like other people's content because like also that takes away from your own branding. So like, what would you suggest for that? Because I usually post a lot on LinkedIn too, but I usually share my own content before others. That's why I was doing like, what's the ratio that you would recommend?
Anthony, that's a stumper, man. I don't have a specific answer, and I haven't thought about it. But I'll tell you how I process the question, and it does inform my approach. So remember my role, my job. I'm trying to connect my colleagues who are on LinkedIn with our culture, our vision, principles, and I can do that by highlighting activities and events that have occurred. So for me, for my job, for my role, I actually enjoy reposting my colleagues or other branded organizations of the Stand Together community. When they release a post, I can re-up it and then offer a couple comments on the top of it about, hey, this is a great illustration of our principle of openness, our work with fire and free speech and expression, right? That's kind of just off the top of my head. So I'm probably prone to re-upping and reposting more than the average bear, because for me, I'm trying to do that in a way that's mutually beneficial for my customers, but also the original poster, which is typically a brand organization channel, or maybe one of our senior leaders. You know, if the president and CEO stand together posts on LinkedIn something really important, I'm probably going to be inclined to repost that, and so help my colleagues see that information as well. But again, that's a unique thing for me, maybe relative to what you're doing. I think your mindset is interesting, and I don't have a specific answer for what you think is maybe contradictory. You say, yeah, you don't want to elevate other people's work too much because it could diminish your own thought leadership. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it would be, the more you help others, maybe the more they'll help you. So, you know, this is an interesting question. It's a game of being generous. And, you know, I would say, like anything else, what's the intention behind it? If there's a certain piece or essay or post that really inspires you or hits with you that you want to share with your audience, I think we should encourage people to do that. And you can do it in a way that's not just a simple repost, although that's possible and easy, one click, boom, done. But you can actually repost it and then contextualize it and explain to your audience through original commentary why this particular essay or article that someone linked to hit you and prompted you to share it with them. That might be the answer here, Anthony. It might be not just to repost things, but to repost with context that is advancing of your identity, your ideas, your perspectives. So you kind of get the best of both worlds there. How does that sound? Is that resonating at all?
Oh yeah, definitely.
That might be a way to think about it. We have Danielle. We're almost over time. Do I have your permission to do one more question, Kasey?
Go for it.
Danielle, you're up.
All right, Rob and Kasey, thanks so much for this. Very helpful. Two quick questions, Rob. So one, I noticed that you're a premium member on LinkedIn. I've done the free trial before, but I guarantee that I didn't maximize, you know, all the tools and everything that come with that. So one, is being a premium member on LinkedIn worth it? And then two, when it comes to using like hashtags and keywords on your posts, how helpful is it? We tend to, like my company, we don't really utilize that on there, more like on X, that platform, but just wanted to see like if you've seen kind of a direct correlation with like the use of hashtags and expanding your reach.
I'll start with the second question first. And I think there's a lot of debate in the world of social media about this. Some people, they almost resist hashtags. They look cheesy. People don't use them anymore. I still use them. Maybe because I'm a little older and I find it as a helpful way to find people who are writing about the things that I'm interested in. That's why I use them. And I post almost every post that I make. If you look at my track record, I use hashtags. Believe in people. That's sort of the refrain of the Stand Together community. It's the one sentence that captures everything that we all believe. We believe in people. We want to empower individuals. So I've kind of created that hashtag. And so if anyone ever searches it, they're going to come off a ton of my content. I've almost created that one as our own little identity. It's based on the book of that same title by the founder of our community, Charles Koch. So I use hashtags. Some people don't. It's going to be more, I think, preference. The one thing I would say that I do use similar to hashtags is tagging people. That's a great way. Again, I don't think you should be specific and intentional about it. But if you are referencing the work of someone else, absolutely give them credit, tag them for it, bring in people who might be interested in the conversation you're having. That's a fun way. And I like it when I get tagged on occasion. Colleagues will tag me because they're doing something and they want me to know about it. You'll learn pretty quickly if people don't like that. And there's actually a feature where you can prevent yourself from being tagged. So my assumption is if someone doesn't like being tagged, they're going to have turned off that feature and therefore I can't do it. Similarly, if I didn't want to be tagged, I could turn it off. And if it's on, that means you can use it. So that's my perspective on it, as limited as it is. The first question, the transformative for me, the data
membership.
The data and information that you can get on the back end is pretty extraordinary. I've yet to dive in and get full value out of it. But your ability to search, and I think the biggest value of that, which might be worth someone experimenting for a 1-month trial, is if there are certain people or organizations you want to reach out to, but you can't do it because they're not connected to you, you can get LinkedIn rights. I think it's something like up to 15 direct messages a month to people you're not connected to. Now, you have to be judicious about this. Again, like everything else, we've been talking, the real emphasis here is on intentionality. What is your ask? Don't come in too hot with a sales pitch. But if you have something that's really important, you want to share with somebody through this platform in a way that's one of the values, one of the benefits of having a paid subscription. So I'm fortunate that my employer sees the value in me doing this, and therefore it's compensated as part of my job. If I didn't, it'd be an interesting question about how much I'd be willing to pay. Seems like a lot of these platforms have that. For instance, I'm on Twitter on my own and I don't use it. And I think as a result, I probably don't get as much reach or engagement with my tweets. That's okay because I don't use that for work, just a personal thing. Anyway, that's not a very good answer, but I'll follow up with you more on it and get deeper in the details and weeds, because I do think there's a way to experiment, test and learn and see what you get out of it for a month. I found it useful, but I think I'm just scratching the surface of what's possible.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I know we're basically at time, a little bit over. I apologize for that. I appreciate everyone for sticking on so long. One thing I want to do before, if we can please let me get a selfie. I gotta, this is my final mission, because I document my journey. I'm going to post about this session today. If folks are interested in having their cameras on to be in one of my famous selfie posts on LinkedIn, please turn the cameras on and we'll do it.
Oh, it's
Yes,
so
I
good to see
love
all of
it.
your beautiful faces.
Yeah,
Caleb,
this is a lot of
cool
fun.
glasses.
This is a lot of fun. Oh, I got to change my view so I see more people. How do I get the box screen back again? That was so cool what you did earlier.
Mary Catherine, you're gorgeous. Great to see you, sis.
Oh, there it is. I gotta switch my view. Give me a second. I'm going to gallery. I'm going to gallery. There it is. He's going to gallery. He's getting a great shot. Thank you so much. I'm gonna get one more just because, 3, 2, 1. Everyone smile. Look genius. Look great. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I'll post that on LinkedIn. I'll let people know. Let me say one final thing, please, before we leave, Kasey. Folks, I'm very passionate about this stuff. If you are interested in having follow-up conversations, if you want me to, chat with other people in your organization, we got to keep this up. We can't just have it as a one-off moment. I think we keep this conversation going. Reach out to me anytime, anywhere. I'm very excited to follow up with all of you. Again, thanks so much for the opportunity, AF, and thanks for all of you for being here today.
Thank you, Rob. Really appreciate it. Hope to see all of you at another America's Future event here soon, and on the LinkedIn. Just do the good old Kasey Shriner Google and you'll see me in my fabulous headshot. So have a great day, everybody. Thanks for spending some time with us. And thanks again, Rob. Take care.